So every now and then you come across a story, and when you're in the news sort of every day looking at what's going on, you think you're sort of aware of most things. And I came across this story and thought to myself, I'd never heard about this at all. And it concerns people who have been charged with a crime and end up in jail, but end up, as I understand it, end up in a cell perhaps with someone else who is not charged with a crime, but is actually be convicted of a crime. Now, a judge has authorized a class action lawsuit that could end up costing the province tens of millions of dollars because of this, even though, as I understand it again, I don't think this was ever supposed to happen in the first place. And there are laws against this. Robert Kugler is the lawyer responsible for the class action. He's a partner at Kugler Kandestin here in Montreal, and he's on the line. Robert, I want to go through some of the things I mentioned. Did I basically have the story right? Is that what's in question here?
It is. You have it exactly right. There is a provision of the Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms which states that individuals who are arrested and who are detained pending trial must be kept apart from individuals who are being detained as a result of having been found guilty of a crime and who are serving a sentence. And this is, of course, based on the fundamental premise of a democratic society, which is the presumption of innocence. And an individual who has been arrested is presumed to be innocent and has a different status than someone who is serving time for having been found guilty of a crime.
So my first question would be, has this been happening because of overcrowding, or do we know why this has been happening?
Well, that will be for the state to answer. However, I can tell you that a number of years ago, it's close to 15 years ago now, there was a matter that went to the Court of Appeal of Quebec, and the Court of Appeal noted that individuals who had been arrested were being kept with individuals who were found to be guilty of a crime who were serving a sentence. And the Court of Appeal expressed shock at the fact that the government was not respecting this provision of the Charter. And here we are 15 years later, and the information that we have is this is a general policy that is applicable throughout the correctional facilities in Quebec, where individuals who are presumed innocent but have been charged with a crime are not being kept apart from prisoners serving a sentence.
Wow. And you say this is 15 years ago this first came to light?
At least.
So again, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. If this was part of the Charter, and obviously people were aware of this, the only two things I can imagine having happened here were either they did not know that this was part of the Charter, or as I said a minute ago, and you'll find this out, I guess, as you suggested, it was because there was nowhere else to put these people once they were incarcerated.
Right, and those are two different points and both important. One of them is the government was certainly aware of it. They were told that they have to respect this provision of the Charter in all cases, and that the Court of Appeal went so far as to say that the overcrowding of correctional facilities is not an excuse. It's not a justification. This provision of the Charter must be respected. But now the question is, what about the individuals who were being detained with prisoners serving a sentence? What did they know? And unfortunately, this is a group of very vulnerable, disadvantaged people, and they don't know what their rights are. They feel that they have no ability to access justice. And that is one of the fundamental reasons why the class action vehicle exists, which is to give access to justice to many people in a similar situation who have no other practical means of accessing justice. And that's what we intend to do with this class action.
So let me ask a hypothetical question here. I'm thinking, let's say you get stopped on whatever, by a traffic police officer or whatever, and they find you're driving without a license and they take away your car. You're now being charged with a crime. You're not being sent to jail for that, right? You just need to show a promise to appear at some point. Who ends up in jail for these crimes once they're there?
So it might be somebody who is accused of a crime and who seeks bail, who wants to be out of prison pending his trial,
Okay.
And a judge decides that it's too dangerous and the person needs to be kept in a correctional facility. That's fine. That is totally valid. However, we still need to recognize that that individual is presumed as innocent as
Sure.
you are and as innocent as I am.
All right. And so this has been happening allegedly for a long, long time. Governments have chosen. And it's funny, we can't say this is an administration. This goes back, as you said, at least 15 years. So first of all, who brought this and how did this come to light?
So this was an individual who had been arrested, and it was determined that he needed to be detained pending his trial. And for 8 months while he was awaiting his trial, he was not kept apart from individuals serving a prison sentence. And he had a criminal law lawyer who became aware of the situation. And the criminal law lawyer and we have partnered on the case. Their expertise is in criminal law. Our expertise is in civil law class actions. And we are going to do this together. And it then became, to our knowledge, that this was not an isolated situation. This is a generalized policy that is taking place throughout Quebec.
So then you've already been granted the chance to have a class action to go forward here. Am I to understand, as in other class actions, then, that were you to win, everybody who would have involved in something like this, whether they brought the suit forward or not, would then be eligible to receive some kind of restitution?
That's correct. When a class action is authorized, there's one individual who acts as the class representative, but it's on behalf of a group which is defined. So in this case, it would be individuals who were arrested and who were not kept apart from prisoners while they were in a correctional facility awaiting their trial. And everyone who meets that class definition, if the class action is successful, will be eligible for compensation.
Do you have to join this suit? I know in other cases it's anyone, who turned out was in fact, in a prison in this situation would be eligible, or do you have to weigh in on this if you were one of those people?
You don't. In Quebec, you do not need to join a class action. You're automatically a part of it unless actually you take measures to exclude yourself. And somebody might do that in a very rare situation where they want to take their own individual lawsuit. But as I mentioned earlier, these are for the most part individuals who don't have the means, who don't have the resources to take an individual action, and therefore they're thrilled to be part of a class action that's being handled for them by a class representative.
So if this has been as rampant as you describe, I'm guessing there are potentially hundreds, maybe thousands of people who might be part of this. Is that wrong?
You are not wrong. We don't have the exact number for now, but we would not be surprised if we're in the several thousand individuals range.
So what are you asking for here in the suit?
So what we are asking for is compensation for the individuals for the failure to respect their rights, which are designed to safeguard the presumption of innocence, their dignity, the respect of the fact that they are presumed to be innocent. So we're asking for compensation. We're asking for $20,000 per person. And in addition, the $20,000 would be to compensate them. But in addition, we're also asking for punitive damages. Punitive damages are available under the Quebec Charter when there is an intentional violation of the Quebec Charter. And in this case, as I mentioned earlier, this is something that certainly the government has to be aware of what the Charter says. But in any event, the Court of Appeal 14 or 15 years ago specifically informed the government that this provision needs to be respected at all times.
So if you're talking about $20,000 plus punitive, we're talking, as I said off the top, this would represent millions of dollars for the government?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. When is this? When does this happen?
So the judgment authorizing the class action was released last week. We will now, further to that authorization judgment, we will file the class action lawsuit claiming these damages. And we expect that over the next 6 months or so, a number of steps will take place in order to put the file in order so that it is ready for trial. We will then seek a trial date, hopefully within a year and a half or so, 2 years, and then there will be a trial.
Yeah. And by the way, to your point, again, to understand, even were you to win, for example, it would not preclude someone who was part of this from, in fact, going after the government to sue on their own criminally.
Criminally, not necessarily, and I won't speak to that because I'm not a criminal law lawyer. An individual can always take their own individual lawsuit to claim damages. However, almost nobody will do that because it's far too expensive to take an individual action, and therefore to be part of class action where you do not need to hire your own lawyer and pay your own lawyer for the time is a terrific benefit for the individual.
Well, you did say at the beginning that this came to your attention because of a criminal lawyer taking it on for a client.
Exactly right. The criminal law lawyer made us aware of the fact that this provision of the Charter was not being respected, not only for his client, but from the information we have for everyone in a similar situation throughout Quebec. And we agreed that we would take on this case as a class action together.
Okay. This is going to be very interesting. Listen, Robert, thank you so much. Appreciate your time this afternoon.
My pleasure.
Robert Kugler over at Kugler Kandestin, this law firm now. Imagine that. More than 15 years, this has been part of the Charter, yet the governments kept allowing this to happen, and now they're finally going to get their day in court. What a story.